Yeah. Go.
I want to call the April 9th Planning Board Zoning Commission meeting to order. Before we have roll call, there's been a change, you know. Welcome Sandy back to our planning board.
Hard to get rid of.
And I want to really publicly thank Teresa for her efforts.
Yes.
She always came prepared. She asked great questions, and she was a really contributing member of the board. I wrote her today, and I encouraged her to continue to participate. I hope she will do that. So we lose one star and get another one back in her place, so it's a win-win.
Yes, I hope she does also come and help. It's hard to stop,
Yeah.
and especially when you're in the middle.
And Jeff got reelected, so you're in for another 3 years, so that's good. Okay, with that, can we have the roll call, please?
Gray,
Here.
Tupin,
Here.
Eccles Bell,
Here.
Boise,
Here.
Conley,
Here.
DiBenedetto,
Here.
Bloomer.
Here. Okay, with that, you received a copy of the minutes of our March 26th meeting. Do I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes of March 26th,
Yes.
March 26th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, corrections, additions?
Feels good.
Any discussion, corrections, or additions? No. Hearing none, have a roll call vote, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Eccles Bell,
Yes.
Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
I have faith in the minutes. Yes.
DiBenedetto,
Yes.
Bloomer.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is communications from the board and council, city representatives. So urban renewal, Jeff?
We haven't met really since the last planning board meeting. Just ongoing discussions with the University of Kansas on their groundwater evaluation plan and establishing a work plan for them. Our next meeting's going to be is Monday
Next Monday.
at 5:30.
Did you all establish a budget? You have a budget now?
No, we don't. No, I don't remember offhand how much funds are available. I think it's somewhere around 3. I don't even want to say it this
Okay.
way.
All right. Any questions of Jeff on urban renewal? City council, Chelsea?
Yeah, so, last night we had, appointed 2 planning board members, as you guys know. Then in terms of things that we are speaking of that do affect, planning board specifically, again, we are working on the resolution for directing planning board for reviewing the zoning for marijuana businesses, and that will be up for action at the next council meeting. And then due to 2 absences next Monday, we did decide to cancel the land use and planning meeting. So there won't be any further movement on that. Otherwise, I don't think there was too much more in terms of things that affect planning board specifically, besides some snow removal ordinances on sidewalks and things that, again, don't necessarily affect zoning at all.
Do you think the direction from the council on the zoning for marijuana will fall into the other zoning review that we're doing, or do you think they'll want to give it a priority, or do you know?
I think they do want it to be a priority, but it will fall in that same timeline.
So we'll have to do it for the other ones then, maybe.
It'd probably be a good place to start and then just get that feedback, but I don't think it's so pressing that, again,
That directive from them would be helpful to us.
I'll double check on that.
Otherwise, we're just gonna go through the
Yep.
zoning regulations in order.
which
And
I think is preferable.
And that if the council wants us to change that order, we'll need that direction from them.
Okay, will do. And, yeah, that sounds good to me. And then Sandy brought up a good note. Doug Miller is resigning from city council.
Who is? Oh,
Doug
yeah.
Miller, the other Ward One, candidate, so, a representative. So there is a vacancy to fill, and we're hoping to have it filled by the first meeting in May. So if there's anybody, in Ward One, and there are new boundaries for Ward One, so, that would be great to get them informed and get their interests in, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Marnie, anything from the county?
We haven't met since last meeting, and I did get an email from Forrest. We are not gonna meet this month, but because we didn't have enough on the docket, so we'll meet next month.
It's once a month?
I have a note from the county, something to do with subdivisions. Will we get some direction on that, or from them, or? I have subdivision question mark, so I'm not sure what that means.
I asked him if there was anything to report, and he said no.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, anything specific from the?
I just want to echo your thoughts on thank you to Teresa. I also emailed her yesterday and said thank you, and have a lot of the same observations. She always came prepared and wasn't active in adding participants, so, I thanked her. Just to add to, the marijuana question that you had asked, I think that the thought was that, like the other zoning things, and I agree with how Chelsea phrased it, they did want it prioritized, but not put the cart in front of the horse. So finish the growth policy,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
downtown plan and all of
yeah.
that stuff, and then take on those
Yeah.
decisions. So they might be prioritized within that subsection, but don't put the
Having
cart in front
been
of the
through
horse.
this a few times, to me, it's more efficient to go through the growth policy in order
Yep.
rather than jump around, because then we
Yeah.
invariably miss something.
Yeah, no, that's a good call.
So, all right. So now on to new business, which is the, public forum on our growth policy review. Before we get started, I noticed we have some people here in the audience and some people online, so I kind of want to outline what our process is here. First of all, this planning board, at the direction of the city council, as part of, our 5-year review, started to look at the current growth policy in April, actually, it was a little earlier than April of 2024. So we've been at this almost a year. In May of 2024, we held a public forum, which was well attended by the public. We had 3 sessions that day, and we listened to the public on a variety of subjects having to do with the growth policy of the city of Red Lodge, of which we've incorporated into the draft that you've seen. The planning board actually began its detailed review under the guidance and direction of our consultant city planner, Jeremy Fadness and Greg Jones with WWC. And we began that in June, in a series of public meetings, and now we have completed that. And you have seen the draft that you've seen, hopefully, online, and had a chance to review it. Tonight, we're here to listen to any comments that you may have, additions, corrections that you may have. And what I'm first going to do is, we've got some people in the public here in the building. We'll go through them first, and then there's some people online. When you speak to it, I would like you to be specific, if you could. Tell us your name, your address, and we're here to listen. We'll take notes on your comments. We won't discuss or debate with you. We'll listen, we'll write them down, we'll record them. And then when this process is done, whether it be the end of the evening or next week, the planning board then will take each of that input, and we'll discuss it amongst ourselves, and we will include it as we feel necessary to do so. Any questions? Did I leave anything out? Yeah?
Good.
Okay. So, yeah,
Would you just have everybody come up to here so that
Yeah,
it gets
please.
recorded?
and we're not gonna try to put a time limit on you. Typically it's 3 minutes. We'll hear what you have to say, stay on point if you can. And refer to the section of the document that you are addressing, that will help us with our notes. So with that, I'm opening the, public hearing. Anybody from the, audience wanna be our first speaker? Take it easy.
I'll go, so you
Okay,
have something.
there you go.
Yeah.
See, if I had some swag now, I'd be the
You
first.
do, man, you do. Hi, I'm Mike, I live in the Spires.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Mike Tackett, by the way.
Okay.
Live in the Spires,
Spell that last name for me.
Tackett. Live up in the Spires, as I said. After retiring from the Army, went to Vegas, came up here. So on this growth program, I grew up in a town that was probably smaller than Red Lodge, and now it has over nearly 1.5 million people. Henderson, Nevada. Growth, the only reason I come up here is my wife and I are wondering, okay, let's talk about this growth policy. The biggest issue about growth, and having lived through it, because I can remember seeing Vegas through 2 fingers when I was a kid. If you've been to Vegas, you can't see that anymore. That's growth, okay? The issue with growth is that you really don't want to deny it because it brings everything you want in life to you. But at the same time, you don't want it too fast because you don't want to destroy your surrounding environment in the process. You want to be able to bring in what you can when you can, and for people not to take advantage of it. So in this growth policy, the only thing we can ask you to do is seriously look at what is your purpose and why do you want to grow? Because there's an old comment I heard says one of the Montana's biggest exports is its children. And that's a sad thing to say. So what do you want with your growth policy? Do you actually want people to move here? Are you looking for businesses? Are you just looking for a little bit at a time? Because if you get popular, because the reason why I moved up here, they said this was a really growing, very popular place, and I want things for my kids. So the question is, what do you want also as citizens? Do we want a fast growth, or we just want it moderately done, but we need growth? If not, we're going to fade away. But we want growth. And the biggest problem I see with the growth, giving our surroundings, is the destruction of the environment in the process because of the river and the branch and the farmland. How are we going to do that? And the water tabling. And when we do this, I think a lot of people fail to plan in the new sewer systems, the new electrical systems, the new gas systems. So I'm just saying, please, when you do all this growth, please take that into consideration. We're not anti-growth. You want families to move here. You want to have a base, because eventually what will happen is the thing that keeps us alive, that mountain, could shut down, right? So if you grow well enough and proper enough, your own populace will keep you afloat because we'll have enough because of their jobs. And then that talks about one more thing that we have to bring in this planning is the expansion of the 212 and the 78. If we grow big enough, we're going to have to expand it for more of the traffic and the more, because businesses, right? So that's what I'm saying. So that's my druthers about it. I understand the capping of housing. We want to have a certain housing in certain zones. Totally understand that. It's just that when we do this, we got to bring in, okay, we're going to bring this much. Let's make sure we can get some services in here. 7-Eleven and AM, PM, maybe more. We have a good grocery store, but maybe bigger. Let them to expand more. Maybe the grocery store needs a petition to grow more and help them with the party. That's all I got to say I've noticed with growth. Because I said I grew up with it from 67 in Henderson, Nevada, all the way to watching Vegas as a megapolis of attractions now. See the whole valley. I grew up that way. So that's the way it is. I appreciate your time. Just let me speak. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else here in the audience? We'll come back at you. Okay, I also failed to mention earlier on that we have had a couple of written comments and suggestions. Those will certainly be included in our, they've been distributed to, the planning board members, and those will certainly be included in our discussion. Okay, there's nobody I'm hearing here, let's go online. Dave, is there somebody online that wants to raise their hand?
I have not seen a hand raised, or they can, come up. There's Angela.
Which plan? Oh, Angela.
I just wanted to, it's Angela Getchell, Red Lodge Area Community Foundation. So I just wanted to say that I did, send, our comments about the housing section to, the mayor, Chelsea and Sandy, and they, responded. So we just feel like that section of the growth policy is very dated. And so I just feel like we need current information there. So hoping that maybe some of that can be addressed. And then one other thing on that, letter that I sent out was, just to, review existing financial incentives and resource models, used by peer resort communities, areas and towns, in order to improve housing options and inventory for our local workforce. So you guys are doing a great job, and we're here to help in any way that we can. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Angela. That was forwarded to me, and I distributed it to all the planning board members, and they have copies of it, so we're good there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else online, Dave?
I'm not seeing any hands or cameras are unmute yet.
Once I close the public hearing and it comes back to us, our discussion will be internal here, so this is, yes, ma'am.
I guess if I can step up.
Please.
Hi, hello.
Yeah.
My name is Kayla Mann.
Say again?
Kayla Mann,
Okay.
M-A-N-N. New business in town. I've been kind of watching it all, everything on the streets, and I was curious if we were going to address our snow plowing. I know it is a state route. However, watching, especially being an older and retirement community, watching elderly try and get out of their cars with our snow berms that are above our head. We are the only resort town with a resort tax that is not cleaning our streets. Everyone does have that 2 to 6 p.m. or a.m. cleanup time. I was wondering, hoping maybe there could be some sort of resolution that we could have a designated, over 12 inches or something, just to keep those streets clean. It helps, states so they don't have to bulldoze those ice blocks on the road. Yeah, parking is already so limited. It really is a bummer that we're down to 1-lane roads everywhere you go, especially with how much we're growing. Everybody wants to be here. So I'm just really hoping that we could find some solution to getting after huge snow dumps, some sort of cleaning. We do a great job when it's ski joring, and we need that snow up at we have no problem clearing it then. We have no problem clearing it for a Christmas stroll. We have a great city crew who does great at clearing our streets when they're designated to. So I'm just hoping that we could maybe consider a little bit more of a cleanup when we get these big dumps. So,
Thank you. Okay, I'll go through online one more time. Dave, anybody?
I'm not seeing anything, Chairman.
Okay, anybody from the standing audience? My intent is that once we close this public forum, the planning board then will start probably with a written document and go through them each one and decide whether adopt completely, modify, or whatever, and then hopefully we get through all of the comments tonight, and then with Jeremy's direction here, bring the final draft back to our meeting next week for one last read-through before we send to council. We will not send it to council tonight.
No.
So, again, I appreciate the fact that, this board worked very hard on this document and tried very hard to meet its objective, which is a plan for the future. Where do we want to be? And so that's what we've done. So I'll go through this one more time from the online.
I'm not seeing anything, Chairman.
from the audience? Going once, twice, we'll close the public forum. Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
how would you like to proceed with this tonight? Would you like to start, with the written documents and give us your thoughts and opinion on those as we go through this? And have the discussion line by line? How would you like to lead us through this?
Well, so typically what we would do is you guys would review the comments, the written comments, and essentially make a determination on whether or not you want to amend the draft document, per those comments or not, or what, direct us or direct how you want to
Okay.
make any changes. I can certainly provide input as we go through each comment. That's kind of the way I think probably to do it. I didn't see anything in here that really stood out to me as, not warranted or not a good idea or suggestion. So I guess I kind of just I'd like to hear from the board, I guess, on what your thoughts are on these comments. And then if I
What
see
I'll do-
anything, red flags, I'll let you know.
What I'll do then is I'll start with John Clayton's document. And we'll go through it and have a board discussion on each of his as it refers to the pages, although he jumped around a little bit, that's okay. And then we'll go through Angela's, document. And then we'll go through the, comments from the people here. That sound like a plan?
Good.
Okay, so you have John Clayton's document in front of you under, multimodal transportation. I think it's on page 10.
IPF.
Jeff, do you want to start the comments on that? Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
Yeah, let me get found here.
I'd also
just
like
want-
to reiterate, reiterate for the public as well that this is not the last time for public comment. So this will also be in front of the city council for a public hearing, and so there will be another opportunity to provide public comment on the final document.
And it'll be before us in 2 weeks as a public as well, and then additional in front of the council, so you get 2 more kicks at the can. Okay, his first suggestion had to do with, objective A, under the, IPF page 10, increased modal. He wanted to change some wording on that.
Yeah, it said, he suggested adding a sentence, assist nonprofits, civic organizations, and landowners to create new pedestrian and bicycle routes up and down the West Bench.
Well, the first one was, he wanted to change the word, under IPF 7,
A.
he wanted to change the word increase, or continue to,
Maintain and
maintain, enhance, and grow safe multimodal routes. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a valid change. It
Yeah.
sounds a little bit better and a little bit more encompassing than just continue.
Marty,
I agree.
Chelsea?
I was gonna say, I think the crucial piece that he included in that is maintaining and enhancing and growing.
Mhm.
Because we talk about creating them, but you gotta take care of it too.
Anybody object?
No.
All right, Jeremy, you tracking these, or Greg? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right, the next one, reword objective B.
What about, adding that sentence that he wanted to add?
Oh.
He wanted to add assist nonprofits, blah, blah, blah.
I think he wanted to add an objective, and that would be assist nonprofits, civic organizations, and landowners to create new pedestrian bicycle routes up and down the West Bench.
So he wanted to make that like a
E?
Yeah.
DE, you think?
Yeah. He
Okay.
said sentence, but I think it would make more sense to add it as an objective.
As an E?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Okay, any objections to that?
The
No.
only objection I think I would have for it is instead of assist, maybe collaborate, just because I feel like assist can too often be taken as financial subsidy. And no offense, I'd love to give money if we have it, but also being realistic.
I agree with Chelsea, collaborate with rather than
Yep.
assist. Jeremy,
I agree.
okay? Cause I'm gonna keep moving until somebody says stop.
End of it, let's go.
Okay. All right, under the second one, reword objective B.
Is he talking about the Alyssa nonprofit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where are we at?
Beartooth Trails already has a vibrant adopter. Did the city improve its process for prioritizing capital improvements?
I'm
Same
gonna
thing.
double check on B.
Huh?
I'm just rereading B so I can see the differences here.
Reflect.
I thought it was a good ad, but I didn't think it was critical.
No.
Hmm?
No, and I think it kind of narrows it down just to Beartooth Trails when it could be other folks that are also contributing.
Regular citizens.
Yep.
Mhm.
So no change, Chelsea,
Yeah, I'm good with no change.
I don't see the change.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think what he was getting at was to acknowledge that there's an Adopt a Trail program, and then go on with the rest of,
Oh, yeah, 'cause you
B.
didn't say that.
Because this says,
With maintenance of trails through programs such as adopting portions of trails. And so
Which
we
is
could
already
just say,
done.
such as Beartooth Trails Adopt a Trail program, and that provides an example, and I think, okay, I hear you, thank you, Jeff.
Jeremy,
Makes sense.
you have a thought?
No, I think that's a good add. I like I like just adding to B saying, such as, the Beartooth Trails already, adopt a trail program or something like that. We can reword that, just add that into B.
Okay. His next, bullet point under multimodal transportation, add language to objective C to address Highway 78 up Brewery Hill.
Yeah,
let's see.
so currently C is complete a multimodal transportation network from Highway 212
Yeah.
roundabout to 2 Mile.
Yep.
And he's saying also includes 78 going up, and I think that's,
Yep.
and I was gonna suggest after bridge, say, and Highway 78 up Brewery Hill.
perfect.
Greg, you got that?
Yep.
Jeremy, you okay?
Yep.
All right.
Cruise.
Okay, next bullet point, objective D. Should we address the congestion at the rodeo grounds?
I thought that was actually kind of addressed through the mayor. That was caused because of the parking at the rodeo grounds.
Yep.
Yes, it was unique and really horrid, but, as far as I know, they have really concentrated on getting those cars into the rodeo grounds and parked. And we will be having that again, I think in June.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they have taken the action of separating the time that the Renaissance Fair is here in comparison to the music festival, because they were right exactly at the same time last year. This year, there'll be spaces between them.
Yeah, there was quite a few, events going that day to add to the mix, so.
Marnie, you have any thought?
Well, I was just wondering, do we need to be specific to that Renaissance Fair? I mean, it could be during the Harley Rodeo,
Right.
it could be during ski joring, I mean, it could be any time that there's something held
I
up
mean,
there.
we've put a general statement in there on parking. I think when you start getting specific, somebody's gonna get angry we left them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Chelsea?
Well, if that's the case, we have addressed congestion in the downtown area, so what if we just said address congestion in the Red Lodge community? And then that encompasses all things.
I'm okay with that, Jeff.
I like the downtown, 'cause that is getting to be congested during the summer, especially if you're walking or trying to enter Broadway from a side street.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking just adding to the end of that, and other large events at the rodeo grounds.
Yeah.
Or just large events within the community,
Yep,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I like that.
okay?
Yep.
Jeremy,
I like it.
I'm gonna assume you're okay with us until you tell us you're not.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will tell you if I see any issues.
Okay, all right. And the final bullet point under that is adjust the, actions on page 11 to reflect any changes we've made here.
Yeah, we can review those with Kevin and, just make sure
Okay.
that those actions, align with the changes that we just talked about.
Okay, all right. Continuing with John, Yeah.
I was just gonna, under the ITF 7C, I just added a bullet, continue with Highway 70 up to Brewery Hill. That's the one that,
yeah,
Yep.
I think Jeremy got that, didn't you, Greg?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, next one,
LU7,
That's on
page 7, LU7, page 6, access to public lands.
Yeah, it's pretty weak right now.
He wants a new objective there to reflect, assist nonprofits and civic organizations. Again, we'll go to Chelsea's comment
Yeah.
on assist, which
Perfect.
was
collaborate.
collaborate with.
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay with that?
Yep, absolutely.
So we'll have a B under land use objectives with that language.
Yeah, rather than the word assist nonprofits, we put collaborate with.
Okay, sounds good. Just wanted to clarify.
Yep. Okay, then he gives an example, all right. Seems to be a new action item at the bottom of page 7. LU 7B.
So I think he's just building off of that addition
Yeah.
of that objective
Yep.
to, just make sure that we address that in the actions as well. So,
I think we're good there.
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't,
we'll just add a new action item in there like he suggests and with that language we just talked about.
Okay. Hey, John, are you all right with all this?
went to
I
the
guess so.
bathroom.
Keep forgetting you're there. Okay, page 8,
LS2,
wording objective LS2B.
That's 2A, okay.
And it's action at page, bottom of page 9. Yeah, I think we've addressed that, have we not?
collaborate.
are you talking about LS2A?
Yeah,
Yeah.
LS2B.
Oh, no, I think it's LS2A.
Yeah.
A is collaborate.
And I think just collaborating again.
Yeah.
Because same goes where he thinks that assisting is the wrong word there, but collaborating, I think,
Yeah.
works in both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Actually, to get at what he was saying is I think, rather than the responsibility being on civic organizations, it's civic organizations helping the city.
Yep.
Right.
So I kind of trying to incorporate that in there, so it would be to add some wording, so it's collaborate with nonprofits and civic organizations assisting the city to maintain.
Sue?
Oh, a word of some background on there. The situation I run into most often, or observe most often, is, you know, the Lions taking care of Lions Park for all these many, many years. And then BRGA has taken the initiative to, take care of trails and adopt a trail and all of these things. And it's great and it's wonderful and it's good for everybody, but in the long run, sooner or later, the nonprofit runs into something that they really need help with. And the city, I think we need to emphasize that the city should be playing a part in that.
Yeah.
And at one time, the Parks Board collaborated with the city and they hired a part-time employee to help out with that sort of thing when things got too crazy or when the gazebo needed repair or when trees needed to be dug up or things that are just regular hobby group might not have the tools to take care of.
So we can write, collaborate with nonprofits and civic organizations assisting the city to maintain and improve.
Yeah, I think that,
Doesn't collaborate just kind of say the same thing with less words?
I kind of like the word collaborate rather than assist.
Yeah, I mean, and I think collaborate does say, like, as Jeremy just said, it does kind of cover that. But I do like the idea of putting an emphasis on what he's saying, that the fact that these people are helping support us. So if we can collaborate with nonprofits and civic organizations in their efforts to maintain and improve existing parks, because that kind of shows that it's an extra effort on their end, and we're working with them to make sure that that's a good relationship. Does that feel okay with everybody?
Yeah.
A little less wordy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what was our ultimate change here?
Collaborate with nonprofits and civic organizations in their efforts to maintain and improve existing parks and trails.
Got that, Greg? Jeremy?
Yep, I like it.
I would say assisting the city, just to make sure that the emphasis, the responsibilities ultimately falls to the city
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that.
to maintain.
Collaborate with the city.
Well, he wants the word assist to make sure that it's showing that
No,
they are.
I'm okay with collaborate, so I was saying collaborate with nonprofits and civic organizations, assisting the city
Okay,
in their
Okay.
maintenance.
In their efforts
maintenance
to maintain.
And improvements of
I don't think we need
existing
efforts
city.
at
I like
that point, just
I like
assisting.
that.
Yeah. Go with Jeff. Jeff wins.
Yeah, okay. Are we good there? Moving on to number 4, awarding cash in lieu.
That's dangerous.
What were your thoughts here? I can't, when we articulate cash in lieu donations and how the cash should be used, that's not a growth policy. That's getting pretty specific. Jeremy?
It is, but we also have to review developments in compliance with the growth policy. So having certain objectives or actions that speak to that will help in review of those applications, if that makes sense. So if you're, for instance, like this portion, LS2C says encourage new development to produce neighborhood parks and avoid using cash in lieu donation. Basically,
Yeah.
what you're saying is, so developers in current state law have the option. They can provide parks space and they can donate that to the city as part of their subdivision development, right? Or they can propose cash in lieu that is an equivalent value for the development of parks that would be used by people within that development. And I think what this is saying is that the city prefers that new development produce a neighborhood park. Now, part of the problem with this is that there's no requirement in state law that says they have to develop the park. It only says they have to donate the land for the park. And so, while yes, the neighborhood parks are good, a lot of times what happens is the city gets a piece of property, say 2 or 3 acre piece of property for development, and, you know, for a park, but there's no money to develop that park. And then the city has to either implement some kind of an improvement district to create that, to build that park, or come up with the money to do that work. And so the nice thing about having the cash in lieu option is that if you're already in an area that has parks, you can use that cash in lieu to improve other park spaces that the city already has, if that makes sense. So I think that's what this number C alludes to, is that essentially you're saying the city encourages new developments to develop neighborhood parks for their development rather than providing a cash in lieu donation to the city.
So how would you change this? Per his suggestion.
I think he's looking for an actual policy somewhere of when it is appropriate to take cash in lieu.
Well, and he's only referring to parks, and in some cases, haven't we accepted, like on the golf course, a cash in lieu for sidewalks?
So this is a hard one because it really depends. I mean, it could be development related, question. So you might have a development in one area that is really close to existing city parks, and there's really no need to have an additional park in their neighborhood or subdivision. And so why accept a donation for that park, for park space or neighborhood park, when you could take cash in lieu and improve the parks you already have? That way you get out of having to maintain another space, and you get money to improve an already existing park. But there's also a situation where you're like maybe the Spires type situation, right? Where you're kind of out away from the city center, and there's not really any close park space that those people could use, so they could benefit in that neighborhood from a park in their development, right? And so donation of a park space in that type of development would be appropriate. And so I guess, you can't really do a one size fits all policy in my opinion, and it could be a fairly lengthy add to this if we start saying, well, in this area we want to do cash in lieu, in this area we want to do parks. So I actually like what is in the growth policy currently, where it just says, we're encouraging new developments to produce, to have neighborhood parks, because I think neighborhood parks are important. And, to avoid using cash in lieu donations, but it doesn't boil it down and say, we are requiring you to do this. Like, we're going to require you to do a neighborhood park, and we will not accept cash in lieu. Like, those are too strong of language. Like, you want it to be a little bit more loose, like it's written, so that you still have the option, depending on the situation, to say, okay, well, yeah, in this situation, it makes sense for us to take cash in lieu.
If you took the word avoid out and put in evaluate,
I like that.
Yep.
you're not gonna avoid them, but you're gonna evaluate using cash in lieu.
Yeah, that would be a good change, right? Because it makes it a little bit more loose so that you have the ability to do that.
It doesn't get us into a lengthy discussion. What do you think?
I like that word.
Yep, I like that a lot.
Okay.
I was also maybe thinking just, referencing the Parks and Trails plan as well. Maybe there, as to consult, what are the goals and visions that are embodied? Is there consistency with the Parks and Trails?
So you would reference Parks and Trails plan in that section right there?
If we wanted to get add a little bit more specificity in terms of how we would evaluate.
For detail, please reference or whatever.
Oh, I think it could just be, I gotta find it again, where were we? LS2C. Yeah, so encourage new development to produce neighborhood parks and evaluate cash in lieu donations while, referencing parks plan, or, there could be just an example of I feel like I need to write this out.
Maybe you could say in parentheses as example, the park, refer to parks and trails.
What I would say, period, for detail, refer to.
Yeah, that's word.
For more detail, refer to Red Lodge Parks and Trails Plan.
I feel like
That
that
work?
doesn't work either, though, because it's not gonna say how you evaluate
No,
cash
yeah,
and
yeah,
lieu.
okay.
So,
Let's leave it out.
I think I like the way that was headed though. Encourage new development to produce neighborhood parks and evaluate using cash in lieu donations in accordance with the Parks and Trails Plan.
There you go.
that's good. Yeah. That's it.
Something like that.
There you go. Thanks, Jeremy. I love this team. Okay, here we go. All right, moving on to miscellaneous. He had a comment on the map on page 72 about multi-use trail along page 78, or along Route 78. Thought it should be extended farther to the north. Is there any way we can evaluate that?
It's so small. You tell
It's
me.
very small.
Oh, but it's wonderful. If you've ever been a runner and you wanted a place to run and it's got shade in it and all this other stuff, it'd be really neat if it was.
I mean, what he's saying is the map is lacking a certain accuracy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
They said it too, I mean.
yeah, I think we had this discussion, during review, also, unless we break this up into, into sections and blow it up, like a north and south or something like that, it's going to be hard. I think during our discussion as part of the planning board review, we decided not to do that, and make it bigger. So, I mean, another option would be to produce, once we complete this, we could produce a bigger map that could be, 11 by 17 map or something, that could be provided if people want it or something. I don't know.
Honestly, like, looking at this map and looking what he's referring to, we just need a little red dotted line that runs the length of 78 up the golf course side. It's very easy to make that addition.
Yeah, mine's not in color, so on here.
Oh, yeah, then it's very hard to see on yours,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's literally just this little red dot that you'd have to track there. It wouldn't be very hard. You wouldn't have to do any
Can we do that, Jeremy,
zooms or anything. Like,
on this scale?
if I had a red pen, I could do it for you.
I mean, we can add whatever you want to it. It's just, we just, at this scale, we just gotta be able to see it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's something you guys want to add, we can work with Kevin.
Chelsea can see it on her color map.
Yep, I think you can add it.
Okay.
I believe in you.
Actually, it would extend all the way to the curve, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the way up to the curve, exactly. And again, it'd be very easy to
There.
recognize on that.
Done.
She did it.
I do like though, could we put a note on this map, contact city for larger scale? Is that something, Dave?
Well, it's digital, so they could blow it up digitally.
Yeah, I mean, in the PDF, you can zoom into it, on the computer.
I think it does a good
Or your
job of.
phone.
So we already have a section that's zoomed in on this
Yeah.
map. I think on a whole, the other trails are pretty clearly defined. You don't have to necessarily see all the structures around them. We're really emphasizing on the actual trails. So the two additions that he's asking for are pretty simple to throw on there.
So I'm getting, consensus here to make those slight adjustments, Jeremy.
Okay,
Wow.
Okay,
It's really hard to see on the
That's
list,
here.
but
add an E to
I
Ann
know
on
the
the,
funny,
on
yeah,
the.
I knew it was there.
yeah, and I'd also like to say, add on, the next page of that, my name's spelled wrong.
Okay. And while we're doing that,
There's an extra E, so take the extra E in my name and put it on Ann on the next
All
page,
right.
on the page before.
I think I had that correction already.
And then Sandy goes back as a council member and move, Teresa to contributor.
And you don't need a bullet in front of former planning board You have bullets in front of the people, but the title of former planning board doesn't need a bullet.
Yep.
Okay, now the big hard to answer question here has to do with some rewrite. Did you read through that paragraph, Jeremy? Do you have any thoughts on that?
58.
About enforcing the WI?
I haven't, I didn't get a chance to read this right, but I'll read it right now really quick.
Okay, while you're reading that, anybody, any thoughts on what he's talking about here is,
I think he makes a good point, and I don't think I am familiar enough to be able to make a decision, so.
yeah,
I don't think it implies that the city is in the WUI.
I think we are.
He's saying this section appears to be saying that the city is in the wildland urban interface.
I
We
think-
are in the wildland urban interface.
yes.
I was thinking maybe the thing is, that he's getting at is to make a distinction between wildland fire and urban wildfire. Those are two different things, and you know, what is it, Palisades fire, the fires in LA earlier this year were
But
examples of a
this
urban
document is not one that goes into detail as to what those standards are, is it? I mean, it just says we're aware of it and we should, what?
I mean, it goes pretty deep into this. And then growth policy statutes require the city to evaluate whether or not there's a need to adopt regulations that require defensible space around structures, adequate ingress and egress from structures and developments to facilitate fire suppression activities, adequate water supplies for fire protection, and zoning and subdivision regulations to protect riparian areas and wetlands. So I think.
So I guess, I guess I'm not seeing, I don't think there's an issue with page 58. I think that the growth policy is just simply stating that, you know, there may be concerns with the wildland urban interface, and it needs to be, you know, it may need to be addressed. It's not saying you have to do it. It's not saying it's in the WUI. It's just saying that it's something that you know, we should look at and make sure it's not something we need to address in our zoning regulations or building codes, right? So I personally, I guess I don't, in my opinion, I don't think there's a problem with this section, because it's just bringing up that, hey, we're in a wildfire area, right? And we need to acknowledge that we're in a wildfire area, and that when we look at zoning regulation changes, when we look at building codes, we need to take that into consideration. That's all this is saying. It's not saying you have to do your regulations in accordance with WUI standards or anything like that. I guess that's my opinion on it. I think, I don't think we need to make any changes to this.
Yep.
I actually like it because I know it says all subdivisions and PUDs should be planned and designed to provide adequate ingress and egress for firefighting personnel and equipment. And shouldn't that also be for, the residents? See, I wasn't really fond of Alpine Basin because there's one road in, one road out. And I didn't think that the road was wide enough for fire equipment to get in and residents to get out if you only have one road. And we kind of lost on that because they said, well, it's a PUD, it doesn't require two roads, where a subdivision does. So I like having this in here. I think it gives us fuel if somebody else
You like
presents.
having this in here.
Yeah, and just the fact that it has to be adequate. But I'm wondering if it should say adequate ingress and egress for firefighting personnel and equipment and local residents. I mean, you can't get the equipment in if all the local residents are doubling up to get out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good add.
Because I've seen that and it isn't pretty. Or the residents are doubling up or tripling up to get out of a subdivision and the fire equipment could not get in.
Yeah, I mean, it basically just talks to the fact that your roads need to be wide enough so that traffic coming out, trying to escape, you know, are on one side and emergency vehicles can use the other side, right? So you have wide
Yeah.
enough access for both actions to occur. You know, if you have a 15-foot wide road, you don't have enough room for cars and emergency services to use that at the same time.
So will you make those, that edit, addition?
That thought process.
Yeah, we can edit that sentence.
Okay,
I was gonna talk again about that last, I guess the next paragraph down, the second sentence. I was wondering maybe it would get at what John was saying a little bit. If we deleted the sentence, these regulations may not be specific enough to address.
which paragraph are you talking to?
It's the one underneath the bullets,
Oh, okay,
and it's the second sentence. These
Yeah.
regulations may not be specific enough to address development criteria for the WUI. If we struck that and just left it saying additional regulations may be required to address concerns such as, I wonder if that would address a little bit.
I like that. I like that.
Can I just make one addition to that? In the sentence just after that, additional zoning regulations may be required to address. Can we do additional zoning regulations may be considered to address?
Do you agree with the striking?
I do agree with the striking.
Yes.
Okay, and then your addition is what?
The next sentence, additional zoning regulations may be considered as opposed to required.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, just a little less aggressive.
Okay,
Is that considered or required? Because it's a, how bad is it situation, or is it just a sort of middling situation? If
Oh.
you had a situation where it was really tight, then we shouldn't let them build it without having the ingress and the egress to be
Hence
in
the
there.
consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Each
think that,
one needs to be considered separately.
Yes.
yeah. So I don't think required necessarily has to be the word or having
Right.
that as an or. I think considering
I
has
like that.
a very large scale.
Yes.
Okay, according to mine, we're through John Clayton's stuff. Anybody have any additional thoughts before we move on to Angela's?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Angela starts on page 21, and her comments are a lot to do with updating and using current data, Jeremy, which we've talked about previously. And you addressed some of that.
Yeah, I mean, we can work with Kevin and see if there's any newer data that we can add in here. I know when we talked about it, you know, earlier, you know, a lot of the census data hasn't been updated, you know, to more current data. So, I mean, I think if we could get, and I think we had talked about Sandy maybe providing us some updated data to add in here, and I don't know if that occurred or not. But you know, we would welcome any data that we can reference. You know, we have to be able to reference it in the document. So any data that somebody else has that can send to us, so we can, you know, and Kevin, so that we can get, you know, some more up to date numbers in here, I think would be beneficial. But
And
in the
and the
meantime,
data
we can certainly check with the, you know, the census stuff really quickly and just see if any of that's been updated since we talked last.
And the data has to be a legitimate source.
I do know the gal who does the census for this area. I'll see if she has any updated information or numbers or whatever from not just her personally, but what she's turned in, and that maybe they have some sort of preliminary report. Will that be enough? Is that strong enough?
Let's do this. Can I get Sandy and Angela to work together and get some data to Jeremy in a timely fashion? Can we do that?
Yep,
Angela, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. You bet.
I mean, you raised a question that we've asked all through this, is that we want the best, most current data, and so. a lot of it's
Okay,
just
no,
not- A lot of it's just
yeah,
not
and
published.
yeah, well, I just was thinking, you know, if, I mean, as far as the rents, I mean, we have rental agencies in town, certainly they've got to have some sense of, you know, updated data. You know what I
So
mean?
What I'm gonna do is task you and Sandy to get that data together and get it to Jeremy and to Greg.
All right,
and I
thank
think-
you.
In time to be included in the final draft for 2 weeks from now. So you can't give it
I'll
to
read-
them Tuesday before our meeting. You got to get it to them at least, what, 4 days?
Al,
here?
I won't do that, Al, I promise.
Yeah, I would say if we have it by next Wednesday, yeah, let's just say next Wednesday, the 16th, that would give us some time to incorporate it in. So we can get the updated draft out to the planning board by the
I can get
18th for
together
the meeting.
and you,
Um,
Seymour
Okay, moving on down.
and Tara.
Those are a lot of data questions in Angela's stuff, but then she had something in here about, wait a minute.
She had a comment in here about photos.
Respecting food service as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a good ad.
This section should probably reflect food service as well.
Oh, for,
That
yep,
was
okay.
big, 13.
Under Red Lodge available community housing.
Yeah. Page 22.
Yeah. And then she brought up the issue of photos, which we've talked about before.
Not the one that she wants, but a lot of them have.
Well, we still have the one that says the bull and bear in there.
There's some good examples in the URD plan as well that
Yeah.
shows some examples of, mixed commercial residential buildings.
Yeah.
You don't like that old brick building? I don't know what other building we could,
Well, these wouldn't be existing buildings, they would be examples of what might be considered as acceptable design, such as, and there's those examples are included in the urban renewal plan.
Okay.
Well, and then she's also talking about, renderings of current affordable workforce housing projects, that are more reflective of like, a more modern kind of design. And we're working on one in Helena that I could probably send a snippet of the rendering for that. It's an actual affordable housing project that we're working on here in Helena that we have some architectural renderings. I just have to check with the architect to make sure that they'd be okay with us putting that in here, but I could send that to Kevin and we could put that in here. We actually have some extra space on here, so maybe we could actually do a few examples.
Jeremy,
Yeah,
and maybe I'm not allowed to talk right now, but I was, like Jeff was saying in the urban renewal, policy, that's what I was referring to. Those,
okay.
you know, those, if you look in there, those are amazing, pictures, and they do have the commercial below them and, buildings below and, attainable housing on top. So those would be great, if you look at those anyway, please.
Thanks, Angela.
Yep.
Okay,
We'll figure something out.
I think that pretty much covers Angela's comment.
except for the STR that she thinks we should strike.
I don't agree with that.
I don't either, but
There's that.
The STR, I was gonna stay in, Angela, because it's certainly an issue on the minds of everybody. We just want accurate data.
and it is housing.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think we incorporated some of the report the data
We
from
did.
The new
Chelsea's
report.
report
We
into
did.
this too, and I think it's a good summary of
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. Does that cover the written stuff?
Community housing.
Okay, moving on to, comments, here tonight, the public. The first part of our document, Jeremy, you might want to address this. We cover what is the growth policy, what the planning are, and what our purpose and goals are. And so I think that was the sense of that particular comment, was to define the type of growth, the purpose and plan, our goals and objectives, and our pages 1 through 3 kind of address that.
So I think, so one thing I just would like to add, or say in here is that growth policy is kind of a misnomer. That growth policy is what statute calls this document, but really this is a comprehensive plan for the city of Red Lodge, right? It addresses growth and it addresses some things associated with growth, but it's not limited to just growth, right? And we're trying to set the stage for regulations and review of development proposals in the future, right? So that's what this document kind of does. And so I think, I mean, I feel like we've done that. The biggest place that you could probably really talk about in here is maybe the sense of place section, you know, where you kind of talk about, or like your vision I think there's a vision statement in here, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
It was written by John, was that?
That was Matt downtown plan. I was gonna bring that up
Oh.
about, go ahead. I don't.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
But those are the things where you would more talk about, you know, your vision, if you will, for the city of Red Lodge, right? The rest of these planning efforts are really, you know, we're talking about multiple things, not just growth. So growth policy isn't, I don't think it's an accurate term. It's more of a comprehensive plan for the city of Red Lodge, when one aspect of it is talking about the growth of the city, right? And I think we've done that. I mean, we've gone through, you guys have spent months going through this document, looking at it through the lens of what do we want Red Lodge to look like, right? We're talking about it in the downtown master plan. We talked about it for months in here when we, you know, your land use map, good example, right? We spent a lot of time talking about how we want to see Red Lodge grow outside of its current city limits when we had the future land use map discussion and our coordination with the county planning board on that discussion, right? And so I think that you've done that. I think that you've aligned this document with what you guys envision, and the public, based on the public process that you've done, has a vision for the city.
Jeff, you wanted to add that vision statement in
Well,
there somewhere?
I was just gonna throw out the idea of maybe we don't have a section that says vision or a vision statement in here. We did insert one in the downtown master plan, and I was just, I guess, throwing out the idea of just maybe, you know, kind of just up front, just kind of having a very short, clear, concise vision statement for Red Lodge, similar to the one that's in the.
Could you use the same one?
I think just tweaking it a little bit could use the same one, because the thing that the one in the downtown master plan is a little bit, has some things in it that are kind of specific to the downtown, so I would look at that one and maybe generalize it a little bit more to be more community-wide.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think a vision statement's important. I know the chamber has a vision statement, and, I don't know where it would put in here, but I think a vision statement is a great idea.
So we
Yeah,
currently
yeah.
have this on page 1, we have this section called sustaining a sense of place. which
Right.
talks a lot about, what you're talking about, I think. If you want to add a specific section that says, vision statement or vision, I think it would be appropriate to put that maybe after this section and just call it vision or vision statement. And, we develop a specific, vision statement that would, go in this area of the document.
Chelsea?
Yeah, no, I think that a vision statement's important. I don't necessarily want to see it be the exact same as the downtown
No.
plan, and so I'm trying to actually find it in the downtown plan right now to kind of, but I think that I do want to see a vision statement.
Marty?
I agree.
All right, Jeff, can you do this then?
I'll take a stab at it.
Take a stab at it and send it to, I'd like to send it to me, but send it to Jeremy and Greg. And it would be put between a sense of place and planning area. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think the sense of place would set the stage for the vision. So, we just put it right after that section.
Okay, so if Jeff gets that to you, within the week, we can insert it in there for the final draft to us
Yes,
for
sir.
our next. Jeff, sure.
Yeah,
I would almost consider putting it on the first page, if we could get it down to not too many words, a vision statement, really short and sweet, right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think, what I'm thinking of is something like
It's long.
3 to 4 sentences.
Yeah.
This could fit right here?
One statement.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think the vision statement should be very direct, to the point, and encompasses the future vision of Red Lodge. Because again, it's a really beautiful vision statement in the downtown plan, but I was already thinking, I'm like, God, that's a mouthful.
No, but I
And-
think he can take.
Yeah, just a chunk, like little chunk.
Jeff can do that, I'm confident he can do that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeremy, if we get it to 1 or 2 sentences, it goes on the title page?
I guess I've never seen it on a title page, but I don't know why you couldn't.
We don't mind being
Right from the
cleared.
start.
I
We
mean,
don't mind
there's plenty of space here on the bottom. You could put it right here underneath the picture.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
all right, that's a good comment. All right, then we talked to Angela, what are your thoughts on addressing the snow plowing within the growth policy?
I don't think it's the place for it.
Oh, I mean, to a degree. I think it's already actually addressed on page 58. I just was looking at it.
I mean, the
It's
city.
under public facilities, and it just basically says, I think what she wants to have addressed, we're actually already talking about at a council level. Like, and then also Public Works is pretty aware of this too. So that's something that would be more of an ordinance than a rule. This is a much broader scope. So,
And keep in mind that MDT does Highway 212.
she mentioned that.
To me.
I guess the only
Okay.
place that I can think of that if you did want to add it is under local services, action plan. You could add an action item in here, that, cause down here we say on LS7A, we have create a solid waste and recycling ordinance and management plan.
What page are you on?
So this would be page 9 under local services action plan.
Yeah.
You could add an LS, you could add another action here. We can tie it to, I think you could,
LS8?
well, yeah, I think you could tie it to any of the, street, like, well-maintained sidewalks and crosswalks, high-quality parks and I mean, I think you could add, walkability and connectivity. Like, it really kind of fits with several of these local services goals. So I think in objectives, so I think we just add an objective in here at the bottom
Then the responsibility would be Public Works,
and city council, right?
City
So,
Council.
and I think we just say, work, something like work to, create a snow clearing program that identifies priority routes or something. I'm not, we'll have to play with the language, but.
Sandy just pointed out on page 49, we address snow plowing services shall provide safe, convenient use of city streets, avenues, and other public spaces. That's on page 49.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking for a specific action plan or for specific action item, creating a, ordinance that identifies plowing requirements and priority clearing routes or something.
Yeah.
Or just snow maybe we just call it, maybe we just say create a snow management plan.
I like that.
And you're gonna put that on page 9?
Yes,
Under
it'd be
action?
an additional action item, yes.
Okay,
And then,
because also, I mean, it's almost quoted, what she said is during the winter tourist season, plowing downtown Red Lodge is vital. That's in here.
Right, so we'll just add an action item on page 9 that says create a snow management plan.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
Maybe the wording that you just said, Al, is kind of like an objective.
Yeah.
So maybe add that as up underneath the objectives section as well, to just clarify that, bringing that wording from the back of the document to the front. And then, as Jeremy suggests, having an action item that refers to that.
You got that, Jeremy? We want to address it under objectives as well.
Okay,
that'd be
Okay.
Ellis one.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. So, to my notes, we've addressed all the written comments and all the verbal comments. Any additional?
Not related to those.
Susan?
No.
Marnie?
No.
Chelsea?
Nope.
Okay, so Jeremy, if we could get, our next meeting is on the 23rd. When do you think you could get the draft to us with these adjustments to us? So that we can then go through it one more time, quickly, I hope, and make a recommendation to council on the 23rd. How soon do you think you can get it to us?
well, maybe most of these edits aren't extensive. So I think we can, as long as we can get it'll depend on when we get that, housing information and the vision statement, right? So, once we get those, then we can get that out. But I would say, I mean, understanding we have to get that data and incorporate it in, I would say we'll probably send it out the Friday before the meeting with
Well,
everything.
that's the 18th.
The 18th, yep, that's what we would shoot for, I think.
Okay, that's our objective.
I
Okay.
had some comments about some of this. I know that on page 3, you used yellow with white lettering that you just can't read, and maybe that yellow with white lettering could change to blue. It's just that you can't, really read the white lettering. Usually when you do a reverse into a color block, it should be bolded. See up there? You've got red,
Yeah.
and then the yellow,
Yeah,
whatever's
right.
written in that yellow, I don't care how big you make it, you can hardly see it.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
So change the color on the yellow on page 2 to a different.
We need better contrast, is what she's saying.
And it wouldn't hurt to make all the letters within the color bold and bigger, if you can.
Okay.
Sorry, this is my typesetting thing. And when you're doing like economic objections or land use, I'd take off the hyphenation. It's really not needed, and it's kind of awkward where you see eco at the end of a sentence or develop, and it's just not needed when you're doing a something that's justified to the left, you don't really need hyphenation on. And I think if you just, choose the whole document and do hyphenation off, it should be a 1-minute fix. I also noticed on page 4, under the housing action plan, H1, A through H, the responsibility, you have Red Lodge Community Foundation, it's Red Lodge Area Community Foundation.
Yep.
And I had a question for Jeff on page 5, under LU2. It says, continue to support the development within the URD district. Isn't D stand for district?
Yeah.
So that's like doubling districts, so,
Or is it development?
It'd probably be
It's district.
Urban Renewal District spelled out.
Spelled out.
With
Yeah.
URD, in parentheses.
yeah.
You getting these, Greg?
Doing my best.
Also, there was an inconsistency when you're referring to state statutes. Sometimes the S on state was lowercase and sometimes it was uppercase. So, I think it should be uppercase. I think the mayor is the one who knows. If you're referring to state statutes, they should both be uppercase S.
Off the top of my mind, I think if you're referring to the state, it's uppercase, but otherwise it's lower.
So it would be state statutes, uppercase. Then they would both be lowercase. It's just one way or another. It's inconsistent through there.
That was my city caps and
That was your
lowercase.
city.
That's
Yeah.
where I
Exactly.
remember this with municipalities, so.
Also, I noticed at the top of page 6, I kind of lost where I was because under land use goals, LU3 was broken up, but I think I would have put a header up there as LU3 continued. And I don't know what you think of this one. On that same page, under LU6, it's under ensure that the city has a clear and coordinated annexation policy, processes, and maps. And I thought another one, it talks about ensuring future water supplies and wastewater capacity. What about ensuring that Public Works can adequately maintain the new streets that are part of that annexed property? I know that if we annex Woodlands on Rock Creek, the city then assumes part of 2 Mile Bridge Road and the roads that are in Woodlands. And so I think that before you annex, you'd have to make certain that the city, that Public Works can properly maintain those streets. Same especially with Grandview and Grandview South up on Remington Ranch. They would be assuming the Public Works Department. So I thought maybe that should be D. Any ideas?
I mean, that is crucial, that we get back up to annexation.
Kind of the other thing, on page 7, under LU1, A through D, it was develop a robust design standard within historic overlay district for facade upgrades and new structures that ensure that the design is compatible with the historic structures of the city. Should we say, and the design and materials? I know we ran into that problem with Family Dollar, that they wanted to do stucco, and we were able to get them to not use stucco. But materials, I think it should be slid in there somewhere.
Which one are you talking about, LU1, A through D?
Yeah, on page 7.
Okay.
What do you think? I understand the design standard and facade upgrades, but I think it should be compatible with historic materials and structures.
You know, I'm a little bit more hesitant to that one. As much as I would like to think that everyone can have those specific materials, if the design itself and the facade looks appealing and attractive and matches the theme on the aesthetic that we're going for, I mean, it could be made out of toilet paper. And
Well-
I want it to be strong and sturdy, you know what I mean on that, but I don't necessarily think like brick has to actually be brick. If
No,
that
I
makes-
agree with that.
Yeah, so that's, I don't think we necessarily need to have materials in there.
The way we got away with Family Dollar is that there was a statement in the zoning that said that it had to be compatible with the downtown look.
Right.
And because of that,
Mhm.
we have the fake windows,
Mhm.
so that it breaks up the facade. And I'm sure they didn't use real brick or real rock.
Right.
But nonetheless,
So that's where we're at right now, right?
Yeah.
AD? So I mean, if we're already saying that with the facades, to ensure the design is compatible with the
I don't
historical
think
structure.
materials adds anything to it.
you don't
Yeah.
think it gives us
No, I
any-
think that
any
makes it more
added-
restrictive when it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
on page 70, you going all the way to page 70?
No, I did
I
not.
was gonna say, do you just wanna give that to Craig?
Oh, that was just a question for the mayor. I can't read all my little things in here.
I do have a question about metal siding. I mean,
Corrugated metal?
yeah.
But again, don't you cover it with the fact that you say, I lost my place here,
Page 7.
compatible with the historic structures? That kind of opens your window for you to, without being real specific, at least in my mind.
You know, I just brought up the metal side as an example of maybe another kind of material,
Yeah.
whether do we need to get more specific or not, I guess. If you think this having the facade kind of implies that what we're looking for is consistency in sort of the historic design and structure.
So
I
I
think-
think that the way this is worded right now, I think is fine because this informs the next step, which would be developing regulations. And those regulations could then, regulate materials and type of construction. So I don't think this needs to be that specific because your regulations could do that for you.
Okay. Works for me.
So that's kind of a chore for us when we get to zoning.
Yeah, but it gives you that flexibility.
Yeah.
But, the problem is these days, metal-sided buildings are a lot cheaper to build than wood buildings. And so that's becoming more and more prevalent.
I mean, it's already pretty prevalent in Red Lodge.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
moving on.
Okay, moving on. Page 8, under local service objectives, LS1. D, capital improvement plan is capitalized. On page 9, you have a white line through LS7. You just need an extra space in there.
So can I ask a question? Can we just have you put all these in a email or something
I can.
for these types of things? That way we're not taking up the whole meeting with
Correct.
this kind of stuff. It's important, but I think maybe if we just had these notes in an email, we can get through them quicker.
Okay. Then on page 12, it says, continue to cooperate with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to train city police officers to assist FWP staff. And I don't think that FWP trains city police officers. I could say assist, but I don't think that they train them. I just had trouble with the word train.
So you just want to say, continue to cooperate with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to assist FWP staff with wildlife conflicts.
Yes.
Does that work for the mayor? Who's in charge of, okay.
So are some of these now you can put in an email or no?
Yeah, the rest of them that I came up with, I don't think needs discussion here.
No.
I don't think that RP1 is us.
Although
I'll
Jeremy,
send that in.
we're right at 7 o'clock. I'm not sure we're gonna get into downtown master plan with any depth tonight, so I think that's gonna be our next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Huh?
That's fine.
I mean, we just get started, and then at about 7:20, we need to go to staff communications and so forth.
Right. Yep.
So,
Yeah, I think Sandy, I think if you could put some of these things, I mean, I've been taking notes, but if you could put all your comments in an email or something, that way we have a list and we can just go down through it and make the changes.
punctuation ones for sure.
For no big deal, and capitalizing and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Because it's my expectation that our next meeting, we'll breeze through this really fast and look for a motion to move this on to council for approval. That's my expectation, that to spend the majority of our next meeting on our downtown master plan.
Okay, so just to recap, we're gonna get a draft vision statement from Jeff. So
Yeah.
that, and we might massage it a little bit or whatever and just kind of back and forth a little bit just to make sure it's good, and we'll get it on the title page. Second, Sandy and Angela are gonna get us some updated data for the housing section. So that we can update that section, something that we can reference. And then Sandy, you're gonna get us your notes and comments in an email or letter or something, so that we can just go down through your list.
Yeah. And would you include me in those correspondence, please?
We'll make sure that you're covered,
Then I can make sure the board sees it all.
okay.
I have some too that I'd like to submit.
Okay.
And.
They may be repetitive, but at least we both caught them.
Yeah.
Jeff has some comments.
That I do the same thing, just summarize those things and send them to Al and you and the rest of the planning board?
You send them to me, I'll get them to the rest of the planning board, but are there any of them that you think are gonna require discussion, or are they just administrative?
Most of them are administrative. The only one that might be, we had this discussion at the downtown master plan, but it's the definition of the central business district.
That was supposed to come out at our next downtown.
What I'm saying is, we've defined it here. We need to make sure
We're
what's
consistent.
here is
Yeah.
consistent with the downtown.
And Jeremy was gonna help us with that definition, at our next, downtown master plan, discussion, correct?
Yeah.
And we'll make sure, Jeremy, have you done that yet? Come up with a definition of central business district?
Well, I mean, the downtown master plan already has a section on page 5 that talks about, you know, what the area is defined for the plan. And I think the task was for you guys to review that and make sure you're okay with that defined area, right? That's already on page 5 of the downtown master plan, the definition.
Oh, go back to my notes.
I thought the problem was that then when we got into the downtown plan, we kept going outside of that area.
Well, but what we need to do is we need to make sure that page 5, that defined area that's defined on page 5, that sets the stage for the entire document, and then we can go through the rest of the document and say, you know, if there's other areas that are talking about areas outside of that, we pull that back in and say, no, our defined area is here, right? And then we can review everything else in the document to make sure it's consistent with that definition. Or we just reword it to say, you know, as defined on page 5 or whatever, right? But that page 5 is what defines your area.
Jeremy, my recommendation is that you were going to look at that definition there and see if that's what you recommended, or if you had any changes to that definition.
Right.
Are you saying that
Well,
you find definition on page 5 is good and doesn't need changed?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think it pretty clearly states where the area is. I think for you guys, I wanted you guys to look at that and make sure that defined area is accurate for your purposes, like the street, the boundaries of those, because it defines the business district, the transition area, right? All that stuff.
It defines the core area and it defines the transition area.
Right. And so I think when we talked last time, I wanted you guys to review those things and make sure that because it said, when we were getting to the discussion on the rest of the document, we were talking a lot about, well, no, I think it's this to this, and I think it's this to this, and it wasn't, you know what I mean? It was kind of all over the place, and page 5 is where that is defined. So the rest of the document basically shouldn't say anything. Like, it shouldn't say from this area to this area. It should say in our core area or in our transition area, right? Because you've already defined those areas. So does that make sense?
Well, I don't have my specific notes in front of us, but I thought the discussion wasn't so much the north-south boundary as the east-west boundary. Am I remembering that right?
I remember a lot of what Jeremy's saying, and I think we did have a lot of discussion on all of the boundary. Like, it was a lot of north-south, and there was also conversation on east-west, and I remember him specifically saying, you guys should go back and figure out what you think the downtown is. I do remember that conversation.
Yeah, I had review written in my margin.
Yeah.
I was even thinking of having one section between 8th and 14th and Platt and Hauser. And then maybe another section that says transition zone.
But the only reason I bring this up is because on page 25 of the growth policy, we also talk about the central business district. And so, and maybe we don't need to get as specific in the growth policy if we're defining it better in the
growth policy, we can say reference to downtown master plan.
If we, so maybe we're okay. But the only reason I brought it up is that we have a description of the central business district on page 25, and does this need to be consistent with what we think of the central business district?
The answer to that is yes.
In the downtown master plan. That's the only reason why I brought it up.
Well, right now, we're kind of chicken and egg, but if we just say in the growth policy as defined by, that gives us, it gives us 2 weeks to figure it out.
Yeah, the growth policy has from 5th to 14th.
And then from currently in the downtown plan, it says 8th through 14th.
Exactly.
And and that's the thing, it has the core business area, the transition business area, and then it also refers to the CBD. So I think we have to go through page 5 specifically, look at those definitions, and then there's a map on the next page.
Yeah. Okay, what we'll do is this, our next meeting, we'll have this discussion of what that definition is, and then the growth policy for in terms of the writing for our draft for the next meeting, we'll say downtown area as defined by the growth policy, or the master plan. Can we do that?
Yeah, I like that language. I think that's good because then it just forces people to go to the downtown master plan to see that definition, and then they.
Are you okay with that, Jeff?
Yeah.
All right, anything else, Jeff?
No, that was probably the main one, was just because it's in we're addressing it in 2 different documents. The rest of it was.
I mean, when we were preparing essentially a 5-year document looking into the future, it's a little crazy.
Daunting.
Yeah, and so I guess the only thing I would add is that we, you know, in looking, in reviewing page 5, you know, I did review it, and, you know, we can discuss it further at the next meeting, but the one thing I felt it lacked was really a map, right? So it talks about, you know, this boundary, and it's between this street and this street and this street, but what would really help the document is if we had a map that actually shows those boundaries, because,
Yeah.
you know, somebody that's gonna look at this document, it's like the growth policy, right? When they look at the growth policy and they wanna see what the boundaries of the growth policy are, they're gonna look for a map. They wanna see a map, right? They don't wanna read descriptions and try to figure it out. They wanna just look at a map and say, this is the boundary, right?
Yeah.
So I think once we discuss next meeting and settle on that the definitions of those, then we'll go in and create a map. And I think it should be a full page map that's easy to read, that clearly defines those boundaries. And then that way it sets the stage for the whole rest of the document.
All right, and also to be clear, we'd ask you to, starting on page 26, because I don't know about everybody else, but my level of frustration, we were trying to rewrite the master plan by committee, and that, to me, was just crazy.
Yeah.
So what I've asked Jeremy to do is, starting on page 26 is where we started, to go in there and make the changes using our input that he thinks should be there as our city planner. And that's the document we're gonna look at next meeting. Is that correct, Jeremy?
Yes, and we sent that out. Greg
Yeah.
should have sent that out to everybody last week. It has my comments in there. It has my
So,
revisions and track
Yep.
changes,
Yep.
in the document, so.
I'll send it to you. Okay. Are we good with the growth policy until next meeting? John, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Are you okay with this so far?
Yep, all good.
All right. Under old business, we had the review of the downtown master plan. Are there any public comments on the downtown master plan? No? Okay. And we've deferred that now to our next meeting, which is gonna be, what did I say? April,
23rd.
what?
23rd.
April 23rd.
I'll be back with the tape.
I will probably be joining remotely.
Okay. All right. John, you gonna be back in town soon?
I'm gonna be here, yes, after the 5th. I've got a surgery I've got to get done is why. It's postponed a little bit. I apologize.
Well.
Nothing big, but it's just, it's a scheduling thing more than anything.
There you go. Okay, moving on. Staff communication, Greg?
Yeah, we've got things like Spires might be coming in the next few months. We've got a pre-app.
Next few months, but not next meeting.
No, not next meeting,
Okay.
but they're starting the process, so
Okay.
it should come through.
What was that?
Spires?
In the 30-day, once they get their application in or something?
They have to do completeness and sufficiency, and then it comes to the planning board, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, they got a lot of work to do. This is just pre-application meeting, so this is just a chance for city staff to look at what they're proposing, their preliminary plan for the project, offer our guidance, suggestions, regulation requirements, those sorts of things to them, and then they still have to submit a subdivision application, all that stuff, and we got to go through our staff review. So I'm guessing you're several months out before anything comes to the planning board for review.
So hopefully we can get the downtown master plan done before.
But that's the only thing on our radar
All
right
right.
now.
Any petitions or communications from the audience on any topic. Open mic.
Nothing
Anything
online, Mr.
online?
Chairman.
Okay. Anything from Jeff? You okay? Good? Susan?
Okay,
Bernie?
good.
Chelsea? Sandy?
Good, yeah.
John, we're all right?
We're good.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Yeah.
Exactly.